Hi, my name's Mary Jo Lelyveld and I'm a frames and furniture conservator here at the National Gallery of Victoria. As part of the North Wind project, I was responsible for researching an art historical frame and manufacturing this frame to rehouse the newly restored painting. So in this instance, it was looking at works by Frederick McCubbin of the period at about 1890, looking at the earliest images we had of the North Wind to see if that gave us any indication of what frame it might have originally been in. The first stage of manufacture involves selecting the timbers and getting these timbers prepared in order to cut them to the right profile shape. In this instance, we used two timbers. We used oak for the flat, which was a feature timber that was historically used in frame making. And then we also used another pattern making timber in order to make up the remainder of the frame that would be covered by layers of gesso and gilding. So the initial part of the frame manufacture involves cutting the timber to size. Firstly, this involves dressing the timber using the buzzer and thicknesser to get the timber planks to a nice smooth thickness, and then also using the table saw to get the right lengths and widths. The next stage involves placing down foundation layers so that we can build up the ornament and the final gilded finish. In this instance, we followed traditional methods of frame making that used a material called gesso. The gesso is applied with a brush, built up in successive layers. Following the gesso, we apply what's called a bowl. The bowl layer is traditionally made from clay, a coloured clay, and rabbit skin glue. Similarly, traditional frames might also have made use of different types of material to make up the different ornaments. Traditional ornament making materials included plaster, which we use here in the Taurus ornament, and also compo, which we've used for the bead and ribbon and stick ornament on the back edge of the frame. The compo ornament is made from whiting, rabbit skin glue, rosin, which is a plant resin, linseed oil and glycerin. These ingredients are mixed to create a pliable warm dough that can be pressed into ornaments to create the different shapes. Mixing the compo is a little bit like bread making, adding the moist materials to the dry. Similar to dough, these materials are kneaded into a soft pliable material, heated and pressed into a mould. The compo ornament is then taken from the press, cut to size and applied to the frame. The plaster ornament is cast in silicone moulds. These are then cleaned on the underside to ensure that they are flat to sit on the surface of the frame. And then each of these sections are attached to the frame and filled at the joints. So many of these frames traditionally had a mix of both oil and water gilding. The water gilding would be applied in areas that were intended to be burnished, different highlights of the frame, such as the ribbon ornament, or areas at the corners that were meant to pick up light and be much more reflective. Oil gilding was almost always used on areas with much more complex ornament, such as the Taurus that you see in this frame. One of the most exciting aspects, of course, in frame making is applying the gold leaf. In this instance, we're using 23.5 carat loose leaf. This is applied in the traditional manner using oil and water gilding techniques. In areas to be burnished to a high mirror finish, water gilding is used. In this technique, water is used as the mordant to attach the gold leaf to the frame surface. Areas with much more complex ornament traditionally used oil gilding. This technique uses oil as the mordant and is much more forgiving in that the gold can be applied into the deep recesses without much difficulty. If you can imagine, these frames would have been viewed in candlelight, so these areas of high burnish mirror finish would have sparkled at night. With the gilding complete, we end up with quite a bright gold frame. This is a little incongruous with a painting of this age. So the next stage in the process, and one of the last stages, involves toning and distressing the frame to make it appear to be an 1890 frame. This involves everything from hitting and knocking a frame in areas where it would traditionally receive quite a bit of wear. In addition to the stressing is the final toning. Frames of this age will generally have a greyed patina, brought on by layers of dirt and dust that have built up over time. After months of work, the painting can now be placed in its reproduction frame. So with this marriage of a restored painting and art historical frame, we get a much better sense of how it is that McCubbin sought to represent his artworks.